Tanya.
Hello, divas and divo.
Divas and Divos. That's right. I love it. I love it. Welcome, welcome. We're getting on our streaming platforms as well. All right, so let's kick it off right away with a couple of wins because we have a special guest and I want to give her the maximal time with us today. So go ahead and raise your emoji hand if you have a quick win you want to share. Yes, all we do is win, win, win. There we go. All right. Yes,
What?
Melanie.
I would love to celebrate. There's Arthur. I would love to celebrate the connection and collaborations. We met in a Zoom room last week, Arthur and I, and then this morning, Arthur and I had our meeting with Sam and her husband Tristan, and we're starting to plan our event in this year in South Africa, and then the retreat next year. And this is what happens when you come together with the right people, collapsing time, and everyone's going to be invited. Woo!
Awesome. Marita.
Yeah, so yesterday I shared I was going to talk to someone about metrics, and I already spoke to her about our event and about the Diva network, and she is already using her own metrics. So I did keep my promise. I did ask her, if she had, if she was keeping track of how did you say of the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And she has not. So I planted a seed.
Committed to that. Marina committed to that yesterday. Good job showing up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. One more. Let's take one more and we'll get this party started. Nora, nice to see you. It's a win to see you. One
Good
more.
to see you too.
Awesome. One more win. One more win. Going once. Okay. Thank you. I was like, what is up? Yes.
I just didn't want to hog, because every day I want to celebrate my wins, but I was like, I don't know, should I say it again? I'm almost done with taxes, and I shared yesterday with ChatGPT. I got really frustrated at the end because I wasn't picking up all the transactions. I'd be like, from this credit card statement, pick up all the food, transactions, and pick up this, and I just think my energy with numbers by the end of the day, I was just like, I can't. And I woke up this morning, I didn't sleep well, but I still made it to the gym by 5:30 and put in my metrics with that. Brianna, you'd be very proud. And as soon as I came home, because I still have a sick kiddo at home, she was sleeping, and I told my husband, I'm like, it's only 7:30. I am going to continue taxes while my energy is high. And ChatGPT and I are working good this morning. Everything, as soon as I finish today, I think I can finally say I will be done. So I'm super excited.
Awesome. And I see we have one more celebration. Who's doing her 2-day Mama Genius event next week? Yes, she's in action. Okay, that is so awesome. So I know that we have been really collecting wins as a community, and that you've been redefining what community looks like. You've been showing up, you've been connected to each other, connected to your numbers, creating real things. And hi, Lorna. And I know that there is so much more to come as we're rolling out in Africa, in Florida, in what's next, the Latin markets. I know that these foundational moves that you're making together not only give us the feedback of how we adjust and make sure that we're really grounding in results, but they create the momentum and the container that other people walk into. So when you come in and you're winning and you're celebrating, it opens up, hey, what's possible for me here? I was about to say, where is Team Elite? Where is Kim Cross and Ed Cross? So good to see your face. Any other wins before we jump in? All right. Well, I am so excited. You know that one of our promises at the Diva Network is that we bring you right with us. We bring you our most amazing, incredible, who's, because always more important than a technique or a tool is going to be who, right? Who you are, what you're aligned with, who you meet, and that you're also aligned with, that can open doors for you, open ahas for you. And so we're super excited to have Renee Marino today to open some doors for you all. And she regularly hosts Tony Robbins virtual events, and she's right in here giving her best today about communication. You've seen her on TV, in the movie theater, probably also on Broadway. Does anyone know where you might have seen Renee? And Brianne, you're allowed to jump in, and Arthur, since you guys both know her well.
I
It's
see
like,
Renee
where haven't we
everywhere.
seen her?
Yes,
Where
all
haven't
over
we?
the country. So Renee and I have known each other for quite a while, and she's on the Aspire stage all around the country, a lot of business events around the country. She was in a specific movie that if you haven't seen it, you should. Does anyone know the movie she was in?
Does anyone know?
Let's see if they got it in the chats. Well, she'll let you know all of that when she comes on stage. I'm not going to give away her all of her secrets, but I will tell you, it is such a treat to have Renee here today because she speaks all over the country. And I love that she's investing time with the Divas because she's just phenomenal.
Well, and not only that, when you think about how you show up online and how you show up for clients and how you show up in the world, so much of it is about how you communicate. And don't you want to learn from someone who is a professional show upper that has to show up on screen in an authentic, congruent way? And so that's what she's going to do today, is kind of give us some of those top secrets. And I want you to go crazy as you give it up for Renee Marino. Woo, 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 woo.
Thank you, Adora. Thank you,
That's
Bri.
awesome.
Hi, everybody. Woo! It is such an honor to be here with you all. Yes, Diva Network. Woohoo! As Adora said, so much of what we do, I'd like to say all of it, everything in our lives starts with communication. And when we learn to master this skill, we become limitless. And what I'm going to talk to you about here today is the communication of connection. Using communication to create those real connections that lead to opportunities. Because as Adora just said, it's all about the who, right? It's all about the who, the power of community, the power of meeting people, collaborating. In let's see, one Sunday matinee years and years ago, I was on stage for the Broadway musical Jersey Boys. And I look out to the audience and I think to myself, whoa, because staring at me from 10 rows back was the legend himself, Clint Eastwood. And at this point in my life, I was playing the role of Frankie Valli's wife, Mary Delgado, in the Broadway musical. And just like many of you divas, I worked my butt off to get to this level of my career in an industry based on who you know, and I knew no one, and based on how you look, which I've been told is too Italian, too short, too different. We got word that Clint Eastwood was going to be directing the film version of Jersey Boys, and they began calling people in from our cast to audition. And an audition is like an interview. And they were looking for someone to play my role of Mary Delgado. So my agent and I tried to get me an audition to be seen. A few weeks go by, my agent calls me and she says, Renee, I'm so sorry. I don't know what the problem is. They said they won't give you an audition for Mary Delgado, but they'll give you one for one of the smaller roles, one of the angels who sings My Boyfriend's Back. And I remember hanging up that phone and thinking to myself, like, God, what are you trying to tell me here? I'm playing this role at the highest level I could be, and that still doesn't warrant an audition. Even though every girl on Broadway was getting an audition for the role of Mary, I was not. So after a while, I threw my hands up and I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to go in and audition for one of the angels. And at the audition that day, the casting director says, Renee, would you like to sing My Boyfriend's Back first or read the scene? And at that point, I heard this quiet little voice within me say, you have to do this. It feels too right. And I looked at the casting director in the eyes and I said, you know, Jeff, I was really hoping to come in and read for the role of Mary Delgado. I had no idea what he was going to say. And he looked at me and he goes, I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like, amazing, great. So I do the audition that day and I leave there feeling so grateful because I got the chance. That's all I wanted.
I go back to 8 shows a week. A few weeks later, my agent calls me and she says, "You're Mary Delgado in the movie. Clint Eastwood loved you." And I was like, "Woo!" It was one of the most surreal moments of my life. That first day of filming, with never being on a TV or film set before, mind you, it felt like jumping off of a cliff. Anybody know that feeling where you're like, uh-oh, here I go? That's what I felt like. But again, that quiet voice within told me, "Renee, you know what you're doing. Clint Eastwood hired you. Trust in your talent and leap." And that first day and every day that followed, I would sit and eat lunch with Clint Eastwood, ask him every question I could, and listen in a complete way. Because just like many of you, I'm a sponge and I like to use every opportunity I can to learn and to grow. So, about a month into the film, I'm sitting with Clint Eastwood and one of the producers of the film. We're eating lunch once again because eating is really my favorite thing to do, right? And they're talking about how Clint knew he wanted me for the role when he saw me on Broadway. And I put my fork down. I said, "Do you guys want to hear a funny story? I never got an audition for Mary Delgado. The only reason I got to read the scenes is because I opened up my big mouth in the room and asked." And the two of them looked at each other. They said, "Wait, what do you mean?" "We requested you. We said, we want the girl from the Broadway show to come into this audition." Imagine my surprise. Came to find out that there was, that middle person, casting associate, juggling a few films at once and just dropped the ball on having me come into audition. So, in other words, if I did not have the ability or the confidence to speak up and communicate my desire in the room that day, I could have missed my once in a lifetime opportunity. So today, I want you to understand that everything in our lives starts with communication. And my story is not unique. For me, it was about speaking up and communicating to read for a movie role. But for you, it could be communicating to build your network of relationships like you're doing here, or to communicate with your team to let them know what's needed in their roles, or to connect deeper in your personal lives. Whatever that case may be, I believe everything starts with communication. So we're going to go through the 7 steps of my Connect method to communicate effectively and create those genuine connections that lead to limitless opportunities. So if you're ready, unmute yourself. Let me hear, "Oh yeah." Throw your hands up.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
You're
yeah. Oh
amazing.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Love it.
yeah.
Yay.
Oh yeah.
This
Let's
is the
go.
energy. This is the energy I'm talking about. This is the energy we want to bring to any interaction, any conversation we're having. So, step 1 of the Connect method, communication with self. Communication with self. This first step is number 1 because communication with self leads to endless, endless, clear communication with others. So when I talk about communication with self, what I'm talking about is going within. And nowadays we have so many distractions to pull us away from ourselves in the here and now, right? Like many of you, sometimes when there's something going on that I don't want to deal with, I like to numb myself by going in that cabinet for another bag of chips, or streaming a whole show on Netflix, or hopping on social media for the good old S and C. Scroll and compare. You know what I'm talking about. Where we look into the lives of others and then compare ourselves against their perceived realities. And then we wonder why we don't feel good about ourselves. Instead, we want to take our power back by making that communication with ourself priority. And here's a simple way to do it. When you wake up in the morning, open your eyes. Instead of doing what many of us do, which is roll right over to the nightstand to grab our phones, leave that phone aside and ask yourself this one question: how am I feeling? That's it. How am I feeling? And then put pen to paper to write the answer. Why pen to paper? Because research shows that when we write, we activate more parts of the brain, and it gives us a deeper understanding of what's going on within. And in this case, what's more powerful than to have a deeper understanding of ourselves? After you take a few minutes and, make sure you have this quiet time to yourselves. Tell your kids, "Mommy needs some time to herself." Tell your husband, "Go grab some cereal. I'll see you in a few minutes." Stay in that quiet space. And after you write for a little bit, even if for the first few minutes you're like, nothing's happening. Why is this Renee girl telling me to do it? Good, keep going. Because what you're doing is you're activating stream of consciousness. And that means you're pulling those thoughts from your subconscious mind that you're not often aware of, that are running the show, by the way, into your conscious mind through your hand and onto the page. And it becomes this beautiful spiritual mental dump on the page. When you do that for a few minutes, read back what you wrote, because let me tell you, it can be enlightening what you find. I've had times where I read back what I wrote and I'm like, oh, I thought I was over that argument with my husband, but apparently I'm not, because I'm still writing about it. And what this does is gives you clues, insights as to what's going on within. That way, when it's time for you to open up that bedroom door and communicate with your family and walk into the office and connect with your team members, you're doing so from a more aligned place, because you've taken the time to connect with the most important person in your life first, you. Do the same thing before bed. After you have your crazy day, write down, how am I feeling? Get those thoughts on the page. That way you sleep with more peace. If I did not practice strong communication with myself each and every day, I never would have heard that quiet voice within telling me to speak up in the audition room and thus gain an opportunity. So step 1, communication with self. Are you ready for step 2? Right? Oh, yes, in the chat if you are. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Step 2. Step 2 of the Connect method. Own who you are. And this is an acronym if you haven't figured it out already. So we have C, communication with self. O, own who you are. And what this means is, in order to connect in a real way with others, we have to own who we are. And that means all of ourselves. So both our strengths and what I like to refer to as those areas of opportunity for growth. So often we think that if we don't lead with our wins and how great we are and our list of resume and accolades, people aren't going to want to work with us or be in our community. But the truth is, yeah, that's important to share those wins, but it's also important to share those parts of yourself that maybe you often want to hide sometimes, because those parts of ourselves that we want to hide the most are the ones that connect us with others the most. So if I were here to get on this screen with you all and say, it's been such an honor traveling all over the world, keynote speaking, and, being a professional actress for most of my life, where I get to do what I love. But I'll tell you, there are times that I have experienced deep anxiety. Ugh, deep anxiety. And I don't know about you, but it makes you feel alone. It makes you feel out of control. By doing that, you give that other person or people permission to then own up to their parts of themselves that maybe they want to work on, that they're not so comfortable with, those vulnerabilities, right? That's what connects us with others the most. So own who you are, all of yourself. So start getting comfortable when you show up online. I know we live in this culture, which trust me, we're moving away from this. In this culture where we just share the highlight reels, how beautiful I look. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. But we fail to share those real moments, those moments that we were arguing with our spouse, or we were feeling lost and confused, or we didn't know how to start our business. Well, guess what? Those little nuggets, that's what make people feel like they're really connecting with you. I know that's true for me. When I follow influencers on social media and they tell me that they're having a day and like their hair's a hot mess, right? And they're like, oh my God, I didn't get any sleep. All of a sudden I'm like, oof, yes, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. So show up online. Sure, share those wins, something great that happened, but don't be afraid to give us some behind the scenes of what's really going on, because trust me, we are all human beings having this human experience. And we only have so many emotions that we experience as human beings. So this automatically connects us. And the second part of owning who you are, if you're with me, if this feels good, say, oh yes, unmute yourself.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Jackie.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
That's
Oh,
what I'm
yes.
talking about,
Oh,
Diva.
yes.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah.
here's the second part of owning who you are. We want to step outside of keyboard confidence and into all around confidence. And what is keyboard confidence? I write about this in my book, Becoming a Master Communicator. And keyboard confidence is that raw, unfiltered confidence that only happens behind a screen and typing on a keyboard. Let me give you an example. You read a post on social media from a friend of yours that you know very deeply, and you read it and you go, who wrote that? And what have they done with my friend? Because I know my friend would never have the confidence to say that in person. That is keyboard confidence. And if we are going to step into the shoes of being master communicators and creating real connections, we must step out of keyboard confidence and into all around confidence. Because we have to remember what we write is a representation of us. So, two questions to ask yourself before you send an email, before you send a text, before you post on social media. Are you ready for these very powerful questions? Put these on a post-it, put it on your computer to remind you. Number one, would I be comfortable saying this in person? Would I be comfortable saying this in person? After you write that email or you're about to hit send on that text, ask yourself, would I be comfortable saying this in person? If the answer is yes, great, send it. If the answer is no, rewrite it the way you would be comfortable saying it in person. That way, you are in connection with the person you are. You're not one person on social media and one person when we see you face to face. And the second question, does this message match me and my intention? Does this message match me and my intention? Trust me, if you have a fast mind like I do, sometimes you're going here and there, you're writing an email, you hit send, and then sometimes you read back what you wrote and you're like, ooh, that is not what I intended to write. And then you're backpedaling and you're digging yourself out of a hole. Do yourself a favor and take the power of the pause. Read back what you wrote. Ask, does this message match me and my intention? And then when you hit send, you can feel confident that you're communicating in the way you want. What we write is a representation of us, whether it's text, email, WhatsApp. And it's important that we recognize this because we're communicating most often through the written word and things can get misconstrued. Let me give you a funny example. A few weeks ago, I texted my friend, I love you, you're an angel. And I throw my phone aside and I go to do 47 other things like you do. And I come back a half hour later and I read her response and she just wrote question mark, question mark, question mark. And I was like, huh? And I look at what I wrote and I wrote, I love you, you're a bagel. Now, this is a silly example, and it was my friend and it was funny, but how often does this happen when we're having like a business conversation, right? A text or an email. So ask yourself these two questions to help you own who you are. That way, you're the same Adora who shows up on social media, the same one who shows up when we meet you in person at book signings, the same one who shows up when we read your emails, right? We want to feel like we are one whole person, right? We're not parts of the whole. This is me. I'm the Renee. You're going to get this when you see me in my neighborhood, when you see me on the Zoom, and when you see me on stage. Yes? So step 2, own who you are. Step 3, nail down your information. Nail down your information. When you're going to meet someone, you're meeting a potential client, even you're meeting a new friend that you want to maybe join their community. Take some time to gather information about them. I mean, listen, nowadays we can find information everywhere and anywhere. Maybe take some time to learn. Go on their social media page. Maybe you'll realize, oh my gosh, they were born in the same town you were. Or go on their LinkedIn or hop on Google and maybe you'll discover, wow, that company that they just left was a company that you worked for. That way, when you meet them, it lets them know that you cared enough to take some time to learn a little bit about them, right? How powerful is that when you sit down with someone and they're like, wow, well, Renee, I just want to tell you, number one, I saw you in the Jersey Boys movie, and that's one of my favorite musicals. So to know that you did the movie, I was just like blown away. I mean, how cool, right? Like, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Automatically, defenses go down, a connection's made. Now we can have a two-way conversation. So take the time to nail that information down, because what this does seeks commonalities, right? You find commonalities with that person. It builds confidence. It builds confidence in you, because now you're going into this conversation not being like, oh gosh, what am I going to say? It's almost like having some cheat sheets with you, but in an authentic way, right? You want to find things that you really are interested in, that you have in connection with them. And this establishes credibility for you, because on the other end, now that person's thinking, wow, okay. Okay, Abigail's, I see what she's doing. She really cares. She's taking time to invest in this relationship. So nail down your information. If this feels good, write in the chat, you bet. You bet. And we are going to move on to step 4 of the connect method. You bet, you bet. Beautiful. All right, step 4. Next level storytelling. Next level storytelling. Since the dawn of time, human beings connect through story. So share your story. Research out of Princeton shows that when we listen to a story, our brain waves start to sync to that of the storyteller. I mean, come on, how powerful is that? That goes to show how much that connects us. Human beings, we are story seekers, we are storytellers. So tell your story. Again, I go back to the example of meeting someone for the first time, or writing an email to somebody. Where many of us miss the mark is we want to lead with how great we are. Hi, I'm Renee. I've been a Broadway actress. I have a book out. I speak all over the world. I opened up Madison Square Garden for Aspire Tour. Like, okay, it's much more powerful when I share a story, like I did here today. When I was on stage one Sunday matinee performance of Jersey Boys, right? I went into a story. I went to a story to bring you in. Think of it like a movie. A story, maybe a story that shares why you're in the business you're in, why you love community so much. And I encourage you all to have 3 stories in your back pocket. The first one is your origin story. Those pieces that make you who you are, right? Like why Jennifer, why you are the way you are. Why do you love the things you love? Why do you do what you do? Your origin story. The second, either how you began your business story or a work story, right? The industry you're in, talking about that and why you chose to be in that industry. And number 3, a pivotal moment story. This could be a small moment or a big moment, something that just gave you that aha moment that changed the trajectory of your life. And then in your back pocket, have those funny stories. Nothing connects us with others more than humor, right? So think about this for yourself the next time you're in a conversation, the next time you meet with someone. It's so much more powerful when we tell a story because it makes it about us. Because remember, when that individual is hearing our story, they're now putting themselves in our shoes, right? So it makes it about us as opposed to just me. I, me, I do this. Aren't I great? Yeah. So the power of storytelling is one of the greatest ways to connect. If this feels good, throw your hands up, throw your arms up, give me a whoop whoop. Oh yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, baby, step 5. This is one of my faves. This is why we just had us throw our arms up. Step 5, energize through movement. Movement is a key ingredient to connection. Research out of NYU shows that when we move our bodies, cognitive flexibility improves. Cognitive flexibility improves. So what is that telling you? Before you hop on that Zoom to just sit down and plop in front of the screen, before you enter that coffee shop to have a conversation, before you present at work on a Zoom or in person, move your body first, baby. Move your body. And that doesn't have to be, a 45-minute high interval workout. Do what feels good to you. And I invite you to use music to elevate you, to create a playlist. I call it the hashtag Move My Body playlist. Oh yeah. Move your body. Get those songs that make you feel like your most powerful, confident self. Play it as you're getting ready, doing your makeup. right? Move your body. Maybe do some jumping jacks or dance. I'm a dancer, so I love to dance. And you will see how your energy shifts and you turn that stale energy into fuel to help you to connect. Energize through movement. Step 6, one of the most important parts of connection. Complete listening. Listening to hear and not just to respond. Everyone else is telling you that communication is about what you say. I'm telling you, communication is about what you hear. Right now, we can turn on any news channel on any network at any time of day and see a lot of people talking over each other, talking at each other, but never talking with each other. And that's because we've gotten so attached to our own labels, whether they be political or religious or cultural. And the minute we're in a conversation and the person who's speaking says something we identify as a difference, boom, we cut off from listening. And this is why we see such division in our world today. But here in the Diva community, in the Diva network community, we're not about division. We're about uniting. Yes or yes? And we do that through complete listening. So jot these down. Here are the 7 parts of complete listening. Part 1, ground yourself. Take deep belly breaths through a powerful practice called box breathing. So let's try it together really just a couple times. And what you're going to do is you're going to fill your belly. See, most of us breathe from up here, right? We're so fast, we're moving so fast that we breathe really shallow. I want you to think, drop it down into your belly. And you're going to breathe in through the nose for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, out through the mouth for 4 counts, and hold it for 4 counts. Okay, so let's all try this together. So sit up straight, or if you want to stand, put your hands on your belly. So when you take a breath in, you feel that belly expand. Okay, so breathe in. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3. Out through the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2. Again through the nose. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3. Out through the mouth. 2, 3, 4. And hold it. 2, 3, 4. Awesome, everybody. Now, this is something so simple. You can keep practicing this all day in our VIP session while you're listening to me speak, because what this does is calm your nervous system down. So in this sense, you can tune in and focus and hear what that person is saying. Okay. So part 1, ground yourself. Yes, diaphragmatic breathing. As a singer my whole life, that's what I have been conditioned to do. Breathe from the diaphragm, right? And you'll see how it helps you to drop down and focus, and your mind feels clearer. Part 2, become distraction proof. When you're in a conversation, whether it's virtual, whether you're in person, close out all the tabs. Close out all those tabs on your computer. I know you think we can't tell when you're shopping on Amazon.com, but trust me, we feel when your energy is disconnected. I can feel it. So do yourself a favor and your relationships, close out those tabs. And when you're communicating, in general, put your phone out of sight. Ooh, I said it. I know. Now, I don't mean just, flip it over. I mean out of sight. Why? A study was done called the iPhone effect that looked at 2 people in a conversation with a cell phone present. Even though neither person looked at the phone, neither person picked up the phone, still that phone proved to be a distraction. So put it out of sight. Part 3, open body language. As that person's speaking, think heart open to them. Instead of having your arms folded or you're crossed over to the side, which gives off an energy of disinterest, think heart open. Make eye contact, smile. Let that person know you're invested in what they're saying. Those old school manners, baby, go a long way. Step 4, catch the commonalities. As that person's speaking, listen for things that you have in common. Listen, this keeps you present. Number 1, and number 2, it gives you connection points. Part 5, embrace the silence. Embrace the silence. After that person's done speaking, don't think that you have to jump in right away to speak right away, because otherwise they're going to think you're not smart and you're not the expert. Because when we do that, that's when we start like filling with filler words, like, and like, And the reason we do that is because we're jumping into speak before we know what we want to say. So instead, give yourself that power of the pause. Allow yourself to absorb what was just said. That way, when you go to speak, you're doing so from a more aligned place. And part 6, acknowledge what was said and reflect back the commonalities. Wow, Arthur, thank you so much for sharing that. I have to tell you, I can't believe that chocolate is your favorite ice cream flavor. It's mine too. So we're chocolate buddies. Yay. Boom. Connection is made. Defenses go down. And now we can have a two-way conversation. So step 6 of the connect method, complete listening. Listening to hear and not just to respond. And remember this, all the human spirit wants is to feel seen, heard, and understood. And when we listen in a complete way, we offer this. Woo! If you're feeling good, my friends, throw your hands up. Give me a little twirl. Give me a little twirl. Yes. All right. Are we ready for step 7? The last step of the connect method. If you're ready, unmute yourself. Say, oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Step
Yeah.
7 of the connect method. Talk from the heart. This step is so crucial because when we talk from the heart, we take action in our lives through speaking up. And speaking up is your superpower. Speaking up is your superpower. But nowadays, so many people replace speaking up with typing up because they believe that speaking up means being confrontational. But I'm here to tell you that communication does not mean confrontation. Bold and highlight that one, baby. Communication does not mean confrontation. And by believing they're one and the same, we are denying ourselves beautiful opportunities for connection. I understand speaking up doesn't always feel comfortable. This is why we need a community of people around us to help us stay accountable, to keep us in that practice. Because we can't just practice once and we'll be great at it. It needs to be a consistent thing that we are doing. So here are the 5 parts of speaking up. Jot these down. Part 1, know what you want to speak up about. Meaning, do you want to share your thoughts and opinions? Do you want to ask a question? Or do you want to address a concern? Know what you want to speak up about. And the second part is know why. See, the why is that magic ingredient that'll give you that gentle nudge of courage when you feel afraid. For me, my why in speaking up in that audition room was that I knew I couldn't live a life of regret, knowing that I could have grabbed hold of an opportunity if I just spoke up and grabbed hold of it right there. So part 1, know what you want to speak up about and know why. Part 2, do a brain dump. Again, like I said before, put that pen to paper, write down everything you'd say to speak up, and then create clear bullets of the main points you'd want to address. That way, it feels clear in your mind. So part 2, do a brain dump, baby. That old school simplicity way of communicating, pen to paper. Part 3, practice the how. See, the how makes all the difference. And we always want to speak up from a place of love and grace and kindness, even if the other party doesn't seem to deserve it. You know what I'm saying? And we practice this by going in a room alone and speaking aloud. Why? Because when we verbalize, just like I am now, we maximize and magnify what we're saying, allowing us to hear back if our tone matches our intention. Because Lord knows we've all had those times where we go to speak something and then we're like, ooh, that did not come out the way I meant. Ooh, right? So verbalize. If you want to bring it to the next level of practice, bring in a trusted friend or a pet to speak up to. When my beautiful English bulldog, Frank the Tank, was alive, I would bring him in the room and he would be my audience member to speak up to. And it always ended in a great conversation. So part 3, practice the how. Part 4, reach out to that person via text or email and say, hey, can you give me some times that you're available? I'd love to speak in person. You always want to try to speak in person because that's the strongest form of communication. If you can't do that, hop on a Zoom. If you can't do that, pick up the phone. And part 5, speak up. You've already been practicing, and sure, you may be nervous, but remember this, it's not about perfection, it's about connection. And as long as you're speaking up from a place of love and grace and kindness, you open the doorway for a beautiful conversation to be had. Speaking up is your superpower, divas. Remember, everything in our lives starts with communication. And when we learn to master this skill by using these 7 steps, we become limitless. So let's go through the 7 steps again really quickly. Step 1, communication with self. Step 2, own who you are. Step 3, nail down your information. Step 4, next level storytelling. Step 5, energize through movement. Step 6, complete listening. And step 7, talk from the heart because speaking up is your superpower. Woo! If you're feeling good, let me hear it. Unmute yourselves.
Woohoo! Yeah.
Oh, that was great. That was great.
My
Yeah.
superpower.
I
Yes,
like your
sing it.
Superpower.
I hear some singing. I hear some singing.
Oh, I
Yes,
love
thank you so much. Thank you all. This is such a gift to be able to share this with you. And I just want to end by saying this. In a world full of chatbots, be a real person.
Mm,
And the one thing AI can never replace is human connection.
mm. Very good. Very good. So awesome. Renee, thank you. I was getting side messages about how awesome you were. I was trying to write in the chat what you were saying. And then I was like, Renee feels my disconnect because I'm writing in the chat what she's saying. I'm like, I tell the team a lot, I'm not good at multitasking. So
Yeah.
now there's my justification and validation.
There you go.
Renee says I don't need to multitask anymore.
No.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and stay in this room because we have about 15 minutes and I want to maximize the time with you, Renee. We greatly appreciate you. We're looking forward to having you back and in all of the opportunities and platforms. But if you have a question for Renee, a question, I want you to go ahead and raise your emoji hand. It puts you in the queue. And Brianna, it looks like you wanted to say something.
Oh, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Okay.
Dora, is this just for clarity for me? We have 15 minutes here and then we move to VIP
Nope.
or is
This will wrap everything.
great?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Okay. So question. Yes, Sheila. But
Hi
let's
there.
keep it in group. Or yeah, like that. Perfect. Sorry. Got it.
I'm curious to know, thank you. It was amazing, of course, that just made the time go by so fast. So many notes I took. But I'm just curious, what got you to hone in communication? There's so many things out there to learn and know and tools. What gravitated you to just really focus in on communication?
Great question. As I shared, my majority of my life, I was a performing artist, Broadway, film, TV. And I realized that I've always been obsessed with communication. If you think about it, communicating from a stage, communicating from a screen, communicating with the fans at the stage door. But even to bring it back further, when I was a girl growing up, you could often find me around the kitchen table with my family. I'm grew up Italian American. So we were sitting around the kitchen table eating, talking, sometimes arguing, but nonetheless communicating and connecting. And I realized that had this fire within me to love this idea of communication. My parents, I have to thank them because anytime something would be bothering me, they would say 4 words that I realized shaped me for the rest of my life. Let's talk about it. And Sheila, when I then went into the world, went away to college, started touring as a performer, I started to realize that not everybody communicates as openly as I do. So that got me in this space of being curious about communication. And then in 2019, I was performing in my most recent Broadway show, Pretty Woman the Musical. And I had always wanted to write a book. And like many of you, I talked about it, talked about it. I got so sick of hearing myself talk about it that I said, Renee, sit down and write the first damn line. And that's what I did. And when I thought about what I wanted it to be, it was communication, but communication's so broad, right? Well, I happened to be at a restaurant one night, meeting up with a friend. She and I are catching up, laughing, talking, and next to us sits a family of five, a mom, dad, teenage son, and two young kids under the age of 6. And the entire meal, Sheila, no one spoke, no one connected because they all had their heads down in a digital device. And I remember my heart breaking. And it was like all of a sudden this light bulb went off, and I said, this is what I need to write my book about. The fact that we're in this digital age, we have more outlets to communicate than ever before, yet we are more disconnected than ever before. So the first part of me really stepping into this in a full way was writing my book. And then I from there, I created a course called Connecting on Camera, helping business owners, entrepreneurs to get on camera and be able to communicate and connect. And my book got published, and then I started speaking, and here I am.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that story. And it's so true. I'm a server at Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
And one of the things I say to people, if I walk up to the table and the couple are both on their phone, I said, I hope you're texting each other of what a great time you're having.
Yes. Yes. I love it.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Laura, and then Tanya.
Excited to have this chance. First of all, thank you, Renee. Just thank you for existing. Somebody said that to me recently, and I started saying it to people like, thank you for existing. I feel that way about everybody on the call. So what I want to ask you about is two things. When you say a story, are you really speaking to like more of a specific thing, like a day and a time and like that? So, because when I think of telling my story, I'm 76 now. That story is very long.
Yes.
And it can end up being about me. So you're really saying hone in on an in the moment remembrance story.
Yes. What I like to say is it's like drop us into a moment in time that helped Alora to be shaped, right? For instance, my origin story would include the fact that growing up as an Italian American girl, you can often find me around the kitchen table with my family, eating, talking, sometimes yelling. We're Italian, but nonetheless communicating and connecting. You see how that it gives you an idea, a picture of into Renee's world. So yeah,
Right.
think of a moment, right? A moment that's really powerful for you that you maybe always go back to, and you're like, this is why I'm this way, or this is why I do A, B, or C. And this is something that everybody can take time to think about for yourselves. Think about these stories, because if you're anything like me, I always forget. I forget all the instances and circumstances that happened in my life, but then I'll be in the shower one day and I'm like, oh my gosh, remember that thing happened? That's probably why I love communication. And then you gather those stories, and it helps you then to think of that in the moment when someone says, so Alora, tell me about yourself. Instead of just saying, well, I do this, I've traveled here. Now you're dropping us into a moment. Well, growing up in Idaho, blah, blah, blah. And it gives us a sense of who you are. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's still like I can see there's going to be different moments for different purposes, but
Yes.
still like cultivate stories that are the moments.
Yes.
And then the other thing is own who you are. So I am a very beyond the box woman. I had a huge awakening in 1988, and my life changed completely, and I became who I am. And it scares me to be fully transparent because I've always been way ahead of the curve. So to actually fully disclose my beautiful, wonderful reality of connection with people I'm worried that I worry about it. Let's just say that. So
Well,
So
you're
I
not
want you to
alone.
speak to that.
Absolutely, you're not alone. And we want to we want to share from a place where we are stepping outside our comfort zone, but we don't have to go the full scope, right? I mean, because there are many things I know for myself, there are many parts of myself or many things that um I don't often share. Um, and that doesn't mean that I'm telling you now, share the most personal thing that you've never told anybody. No, it doesn't have to be that. You can start small.
Okay.
It can be what you just said. I had an awakening in 1986. It's something that I don't often talk about, but it was something that transformed my life and made me do a 180, right? So it doesn't have to be the most, it's kind of like when I help people craft their talks from stage and share their stories. You don't have to share um your most deeply wounding, hard, dramatic moment in your life, right? It can just be a moment that it just happens to be something that you don't tell everybody, right?
It's not so much something like that. It's more like so- radical things that are now that come into for I'll just give you an example. Something that changed my marriage forever was doing a guided journey with MDMA, which was illegal back then.
Yep.
Now being used to help rape victims, and now really being acknowledged. So I feel that that is something that I want to share because I know the importance of it, but it's scary to share because it's still so outside the box of what people are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more what I'm talking about, something that is finding its way into the culture, but not yet there, really.
Yeah, and that's okay. That you don't have to, right? This is the purpose of owning who you are just means for you to understand and flip the script in your brain of thinking that you can only share the amazing wins and the parts of yourself that you love. Like what I'm saying is it's okay to talk about how you cry sometimes or
Okay.
you're unsure, right? Or for you, how about the fact that you took this journey with your husband? You don't have to talk about what the journey is, but maybe you could talk about how you had a time in your life where you felt lost. You and your husband weren't connecting. So you had to do something that really shook up the relationship because you were feeling a bit of a disconnect, right?
Right.
That's what I mean is just share the essence of,
Okay, great. I got that.
yeah, just the
Thank you.
essence of something that doesn't, it's not just what's making Allura is so comfortable with, but something that does make you step outside your comfort zone.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Awesome. So before we go to Tanya, Laura, I just want to add to that, and it's your legacy. So if you keep feeling called to be radical or to share something more radical or to step, then that's another session, right? Is to go, maybe, it's really about the life that you want to design. But I love what you said so much, Renee, because ultimately it's your story and it's who you want to be in the world, what you want to reveal. And there's a way to reveal more of yourself while still having boundaries that protect the parts of you that only your inner circle get to
Beautiful.
experience.
Beautifully, beautifully put. Yes, Adora, that's a beautiful way to put it. Before we move on, can everybody smile, look in your camera lens? I want to take a picture of us. So if you're there and you don't have your camera on, please put it on, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, here we go. All right, everybody look in that camera lens. Remember, look up, not at the screen. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. So that's a little trick for you too. Little side note, whenever you're in a conversation, this is a little extra tip I'm going to give you. Make sure when you're speaking, you're looking in the camera lens because it makes the person and people feel like you're looking in their eyes as opposed to if I'm looking at you here, do you see how my eyes disconnect?
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. Next.
Let's see that I was going.
Tanya.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Renee. This was
Oh,
amazing.
you're welcome.
I I wanted to, so obviously you're a master communicator. You have a magnetism that we could all feel in this room, and I took copious notes of everything you said, like, oh, check, let me see if I do this, if I do that. If you were to summarize, of all the 7 points that you're going into a conversation, you're wanting to connect, you're wanting to communicate, what would be that 1 or 2 things that we could start holding on to now until we can start mastering all the other steps?
Seek to understand and not to be understood. If we
I love
just
that.
do that one thing, enter the conversation being more curious than more driven to share about yourself, that will change the game in itself. Because remember,
Awesome.
all the human spirit wants is to feel seen, heard, and understood. I mean, the quote for me that represents my business and why I do what I do, the Maya Angelou quote, people will forget what you said. So who cares about what you're saying? People forget what you did. They really don't care, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. And let me tell you something. When you're in a conversation and you give someone your undivided attention and you give them a smile and you nod, and when they're done speaking, you acknowledge what they said, you better believe they're going to want to stay in your world. And that is the most powerful thing. So I would start there.
Yay, thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have anyone else? I don't know. Do we have time, Adora, for another question?
Yep, we can do the last 2
Great.
quickly. Salani. Yay. Salani. Okay, Michelle.
First of all, thank you so much, Renee. It's such a pleasure to hear your energy and vibrance. My question for you, though, is I feel like sometimes a different person because like I have so much energy when I'm in the Zoom rooms or doing the business, and then I come home and I feel like I don't have that same energy for my family. I was wondering if you have any tips on mindset shifts or what I could do because I feel like, yeah, I just feel lost in that, and I really do want to be myself or like figure out who that is and be that same person all the time. I know you're not always energetic, but just want to give more to my family.
Yeah, I love that. Well, first of all, the first thing that I want to congratulate you on is wanting to do that. That's beautiful, right? Because our families and I mean our personal lives, that's most important. So I would start there and just go back to the why, right? Why do you want to show up that way? It's your freaking family, right? Nothing's more important than that. Connecting with your family if you have children. So first put the why in front of it. And before you kind of, I would say, enter the space with your family, take the time to do the box breathing and move your body a little bit. Like have a shift, right? After you're done working on the business, after you're on Zoom, like you don't want to go from Zoom and be like, okay. And now you're like cooking dinner.
Yeah.
You want to take a moment or two for yourself, going back to communicating with yourself. Take a moment to kind of settle in so Michelle has a breather and then feel as if, okay, next chapter, turn in the page, and now you can show up again just as fully, but you need the reset button. You can't just jump from one place to another.
Thanks. I think I haven't been setting that enough. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the reminder. I think we all need those reminders of the shifts in the day and actually take those moments.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Renee.
You're welcome.
Dora, can I add something real quick?
Yes.
I've had the opportunity, the blessed opportunity to hear Renee speak, teach all over the country. We've become very good friends. And one, like my aha, my takeaway today was a lot of times I always say when we anchor, we talk about this often in the Diva Network. We've talked about this, that when we want to get better at something, like we're all here hearing about how to become master communicators. And some of the things that we say is how do we anchor to someone that has the education, the framework, she did that. But also the second one is wisdom, right? It's surrounding ourselves at the Diva Network. We have these wise people that have proven, Renee's proven that she's a master communicator. So what I want to say to that is I had different optics today as I sat here and I watched the congruency of Renee, right? Because I know her personally. I was like, how is she showing up? And so I want to ask you, like us to think about this, that we had the opportunity to observe someone doing it live. We observed her communicating. So my thoughts were, where were her hands? Not on her lap. They weren't still. She clapped, she She snapped, she clapped, she moved, she danced, right? Where was her body in movement throughout the entire thing? What were the lights like? What were the lights? Look how bright she is. And I was like, man, I need a background for real. Because everyone's like, you're always on a different background. I'm always moving. But it made me say, like, I need to make sure I have this static, beautiful lights in background behind me because it's professional. And it's because you do that professionally. What was the color she was wearing? What was her smile like? Y'all saw this one. What was her cup? Who saw her cup? Raise your hand up if you saw her cup, because it was in the chat box. It was all over the chat box, right?
This was for you girls, okay? Just saying, conscious
Yes.
baby.
She had the just ask methodology really down. She asked you, just ask, said, can you put in the chat? Oh, yeah. Can you unmute and say, oh, yeah? Can you say, you bet? And what did everyone do? Not being afraid to ask other people to communicate and participate was so good. And then taking a picture of everyone that you know that like Renee values all of us. Like she can't wait to go and spread the joy. Like got to speak at the Diva Network. Like, are you doing the same congruent things that when you're a master at something, are you showing up like that? And so I just saw that at a really deep level today. So I appreciate not just the information, but I appreciate the congruency of how you show up in all of those ways.
Thank you, Bree.
Well, and I love that you brought that up because proximity and actually sharing space, there's what someone is teaching, but there's all the things you catch through their beingness. And I think there's a much higher transference live. You catch things in a replay, but when you share space, there is an actual transference. So thanks for the recap of that. I know we are at time. We're a little over time. Justine and Renee, Renee, do you have time for a quick question and a quick
Yes,
answer?
please.
Yes. Okay, Justine.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm like, let's keep going.
I just say Dr. Andrea has her hand up, and in my thing,
Yes,
it's
she does.
before Justine's. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep. Oh, yep. Dr. Andrea, she just wrote yes in the chat.
Okay, so Dr. Andrea had her hand up first. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Wow. I am here with my heart beating fast. I love you, Renee. Thank you. Thank you, Adora and Brianna, for this opportunity. I'm not in my camera because my computer died. I'm in my car, so my apologies. But Renee, I loved your 7 steps. And I would like to know, how do you feel about applying these steps for girls, for kids? So I'm a mother, and we have a lot of mothers here at the Divas Network. And I'm wondering if you have done that. And I work with kids as well about empowerment, mindset. And I was just wondering how would be the 7 steps for kids. I would love to hear about that. If you can explain. And also, how can we apply when we are talking about, like you mentioned before, a defining moment in your career that taught you the most about resilience, about staying true to your purpose. Is there anything that you could add beyond the 7 steps about how can we apply that lesson in our own life, personal life and professional growth?
Thank you. Just to clarify, so the second part of the question, you're asking about the pivotal moment story, yes? Like how I said to have that in your back pocket. And that, so let me give you an example. For me, I shared a little pivotal moment when I said I had that aha moment at the restaurant when I looked over and this family of 5 was eating and everyone was on a digital device. And my heart broke because there was no communication, there was no connection. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I said, that's what I need to shine a light on. That's what my book's going to be about. So I would share that on a podcast when someone says, oh, what made you want to write your book? Well, John, let me tell you, I was always obsessed with communication, but the moment came when I was at a restaurant and then I tell that story. You see? So it can be any moment in your life. It could even and I said it doesn't have to be so extraordinary, you're climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. It could just be a little moment where you were sitting across from your husband and all of a sudden you're like, I saw him through a different set of eyes. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, like this man has done so much for me. And from that point on, our connection was never stronger because I came from a place of gratitude and appreciation for him. Just that little moment there. And the second part, I love that you say about sharing this connect method with children. Oh my gosh. I mean, literally all of those steps can be shared in just a very simple way, starting with the communication with self, right? Like explaining to kids, I know we all want to get on our digital devices, but it's important to wake up, go to the bathroom, do your business, come back to your quiet space for a few minutes and just write down something that you're thinking about. It could be anything because just by writing, and you can explain that, there's really incredible research. Cognitive scientist, by the way, Daniel Willingham has noted students remember what they think about. And when they are writing, they're thinking about formulating the letter that formulates the word, that formulates the sentence, thus locking it into their brains. So it could be a fun game where, you know what? Everybody, we're going to practice putting pen to paper. I know in school, we're on our computers, we're on our phones all the time, but for this to become a really great communicator, we want to be really good at writing and then have them. So, like in each step, right? Just sharing it the way I did, but just seeing it through the eyes of children and whatever the ages may be. High school you would be able to share just the way I did if it's high school students or college. But if it's a younger crowd, making it fun, right? Own who you are. That means tell me a few things that are great about you. All right, tell me if there's something you're afraid of. Well, guess what? Sometimes it's really cool when we share something we're afraid of with others because we give them bravery and we allow them to share. Does that make sense?
Awesome. Awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
Team, we need to wrap in the next 3 minutes. So
Yeah.
Salani, bullet question and then Renee and Justine. Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, my dear.
No, I just wanted to say I was there the time to rise. So I was one of the crew members and everybody was so excited. They said she's doing amazing. And I'm like, I know. So we are so proud of you. You did amazing. And a lot of the attendees too, they were so touched by you. So nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Justine.
I'm going to make this really quick. Hello, Renee. I'm Justine. This is really, I love hearing stories of transferring acting into speaking, into sharing stories. I'm a voiceover talent and coach, and I'm making this transition. It's not really a transition. I feel like it works so well, what we do with our voices and how we share. And I'm excited to hear what people need in this group to learn about storytelling, and that you brought out so much of these questions of origin stories and moments. And I can't wait to help everybody and find their origin stories and tell their stories. And thank you for bringing that to everybody's attention. It's really, really beautiful.
Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you. Yay, voiceovers.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Awesome. Renee, just thank you for the light that you are. I remember the first moment that we talked on the phone, kind of like my moment with Brienne. It was like, I feel like I've known you forever. Let's do it. We had a big workshop in mind that we may still bring to you all later, which is pretty epic. But regardless who you are, as an aligned, congruent soul, contribution oriented, it shines in every way. And thank you for your intentionality and sharing the space and helping to lock arms with visionary leaders who are driven to impact communities. Because what you just gave means that each of the people here, each of you with your own vision, when you go apply that, it's now unlocked, unleashed, and the community that you're holding space for is impacted by you taking time in this room and by the gift of Renee giving that. And so, Renee, thank you for who you're giving to and what that means to our global ripple impact, what it means to our brothers and sisters around the world. We appreciate you very deeply. And those of you here, I want you to sink it in as always, and now go give to the communities that you're called to. Allow this learning to impact your family, the people that you're called to unleash and help unlock and have better quality of living. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adora. Thank all of you. This was such a gift. Thank you for your light. I have to tell you, I felt your energy through the screen. So bring that every time you're on the screen and you will connect. And I'm just so excited for you to use these steps.
Awesome. Okay, come off mute and say goodbye for now. Goodbye. Goodbye. Sing your way out in honor of
Thank you.
Renee.
You're great.
Goodbye. I love you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Take care,
y'all.
everyone.
For now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes,
Bye.